Hey, it's an attempt to revive a genre that hasn't been big since the 90s. Did it work? Let's find out. Spenser Confidential stars Mark Wahlberg as Spenser, a disgraced former Boston police officer who was recently released from jail. When his former captain and another officer are found murdered, Spenser teams up with his new roommate Hawk, played by Winston, and the two begin their own investigation to see what may have transpired. This was directed by Peter Berg and is the fifth collaboration between him and Mark Wahlberg. I haven't seen all of the movies they've done together. The ones I did get to check out were Deepwater Horizon and Patriots Day, both of which were pretty good. And this is the first time that the two are collaborating on a comedy, this being a buddy cop movie. And this is not the first time that Peter Berg has directed comedy, two of his earlier works being The Rundown and Hancock, both of which were also pretty good. And I keep saying pretty good because I'm not really a fan of Peter Berg. His movies are hit and miss, and when they hit, they're fine. Nothing too special, but his movies are enjoyable. And this time around, let's just get right into it. This movie had a solid cast overall. Most of them seemed like they had fun with this, especially Mark Wahlberg. I find whenever you allow him to just be this snarky guy who approaches everyone with this tough guy attitude, that's when you get the best out of him. Two great examples being The Departed and The Other Guys. And here, once again, he mostly does that. He has this rivalry when he's in jail with another prisoner played by Post Malone, and I honestly felt those were some of the stronger scenes in this movie. And whenever he gets to play off Alan Arkin, who's his old friend, who's now a senile old man, that's also pretty funny. Probably the other big standout is Bokeem Woodbine as one of the detectives in Wahlberg's former unit. His role increases as the movie goes on, and I feel he gives this movie a much-needed energy boost. I'd also say this movie's pretty competently directed. If there's one thing I can give Peter Berg a lot of credit for, is that he knows how to direct action really well. The fights were really well choreographed, and there were a lot of great shots that helped build tension in some of the more serious moments, so that was a plus. Beyond having a great cast and being good from a technical standpoint, this movie is otherwise a mess. Front to back. Despite being an action comedy, this is, for starters, not very funny. Like I mentioned, there are a couple of jokes that work here and there, but the majority of these jokes are characters just screaming and yelling at each other. But there is nothing inherently funny about any of these scenes, outside of maybe the Post Malone scenes. There's a subplot involving Mark Wahlberg's ex, who in a flashback does nothing but incoherently scream and yell at him and tell him how much she hates him. But then the rest of the movie, she does nothing but obsessively follow him and tell him how much she loves him all of a sudden. So there's one scene, get ready for it, they're having really loud sex in a public bathroom. And the joke is that everyone can hear it outside the bathroom. Hilarious, right? This goes on painfully longer than it needs to. I'm talking uncomfortably long. Winston Duke, he's normally a great actor. He was easily one of the best parts of Us. But here, he goes totally to waste. For a buddy movie, this does absolutely nothing with the buddy aspect. He mainly stays off to the side whenever Mark Wahlberg goes to interrogate someone, so they're barely together this entire movie. What sense does that make? And when they are together, all they do is just stare at each other and give each other dirty looks. Every so often, just to make him feel relevant, he'll suddenly drop a piece of information so Mark Wahlberg knows exactly where he needs to go next. In fact, by default, the funniest joke between these two is that Winston Duke is in his car playing loud music and Mark Wahlberg is in a big fight scene with everyone else in the building, and Winston Duke can't hear him because it's too loud. Because we haven't seen that one before, right? But the main problem with this movie, is that it doesn't seem to know what kind of tone it wants to go for. It constantly shifts back and forth between being a gritty cop drama and a goofy action comedy. You'll have one scene, for example, there's this really gruesome, violent murder that just happened, and the shot focuses for a while on this one girl who's related to the guy that died. It focuses on her just crying her eyes out, and it's really serious. And then the next scene is, get ready, Alan Arkin and Mark Wahlberg having an argument over milk that goes on for like 30 seconds longer than it needs to. And this goes on for the entire movie. And what's frustrating is very little of this material works. Like, not only is it not funny, the serious stuff barely works as well. It's a lot of scenes of Mark Wahlberg just asking a suspect a bunch of questions and nothing more to the scene, or it'll be these dragged out shots of him by himself examining this piece of evidence, or maybe he'll just be deep in thought and that's the entire scene. At 2 hours, I found myself relentlessly bored for most of it. For all the question and answer sessions we get through this movie, at one point I honestly thought we were at the hour 20 mark, and when I checked my watch, it was only 40 minutes. 40 minutes! And honestly, there is nothing inherently compelling or interesting about any of this. Mark Wahlberg is the only character who we really get to know anything about, and that's because of some backstory that he got in the first few minutes of the movie. It's not like we care much about the murder victim or his relationship to Mark Wahlberg or to anyone else in the movie, because we barely saw him to begin with, and the effect it has on anyone else in this movie is never really explored. There's really no arc for anyone in this movie, maybe outside of Mark Wahlberg. It's just ask a bunch of questions, solve the mystery, make some really bad jokes in between, and that's it. Nothing more. This is bad. It may have a likable cast and it may be competently directed, but it all adds up to nothing. Not only is this a movie that doesn't know whether or not it wants to be either a comedy or a drama, it's neither very funny nor very compelling. Honestly, it's not the absolute worst thing I've seen, not even close, but it's a total misfire. Spenser Confidential gets a 4 out of 10. The cast legitimately tries, and I think that's what prevented it from getting an even lower score. But yeah, there's not much redeeming this one. Netflix has a lot else they can offer. Just check out something else besides this. But let me know, did you see Spenser Confidential, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you find it funny, or did you like the story, and what's one of your favorite buddy movies if you have one? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you like what you see, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.